Good morning, everyone, and welcome to day two of the University of the West Indies School of Clinical Medicine and Research's 19th Annual Research Days Conference, held under the theme Making the Bahamas Healthy Again, building on a research foundation. I am Dr. Rodina Ferguson Cooper, and I'm a family medicine specialist with the Public Hospital Authority. It's very recent. It's truly my pleasure to serve as your moderator for this research workshop session. And as I said, having recently completed my postgraduate training, I can confidently state how essential conferences like these are. They not only allow for sharing of knowledge, but for refining of our research skills. Today's topics: obtaining ethical approval and navigating the research electronic data capture platform known as RED helps us to understand how to ethically design and manage our studies, not only to strengthen the integrity of our work, but also ensure that our findings can be meaningfully contributed to improving health outcomes here and in the Caribbean. Before we begin today's session, I would like to invite Dr. Charles Virgil, family medicine resident, to open us up in a word of prayer.
Good morning. Heads bowed and eyes closed, reverence to God. First of all, thank you, God, for just this marvelous day, waking us up this morning with a new life and a new day. Father God, thank you for just bringing us here safely. We pray, Lord Jesus, that the information that is received from the researchers, from the speakers, that it nurtures our mind, Lord God. And we pray, Lord, in the name of Jesus, that the information that we receive, we're able to apply it to our patients, we're able to apply it to life. And Father God, we just thank you just for the grace and mercy that you've just given us, Lord God, to be able to come here this morning. And Father God, we pray, Lord, that the remainder of this week continue to be successful. Blessing each one of us, Father God, for just being able to be here today, Lord. And thank you. We pray, Lord. Amen.
So I'd just like to take a moment to acknowledge and thank our sponsors and partners whose generous support has made this year's Research Days conference possible, starting with the Ministry of Health and Wellness, the National Insurance Board, the Public Hospital Authority, the Medical Association of the Bahamas, Spotted Doc, Stata, Spring and Nature, Celco Labs Clinical, Nestle, Medical Protection Society, Doctors Hospital, the Consultant Physician Staff Association, Dr. Sabrika Pinda Butler, and Dr. Krista Wells. So just with every session, I'd just like to give a few quick reminders for those that are in the room. Please ensure that you silence your cell phones. If you're joining us online, please keep your microphones muted until you're speaking. Each presenter today will have 60 minutes for their presentation, followed by a short question and answer session at the end of each session. We ask that you keep your questions concise so that as many persons can have the opportunity to ask a question. Please remember to also visit Sunshine Learner to complete your session evaluations. The enrollment key for feedback is research, all small letters. Now that housekeeping is out of the way, let's get started with our presenters for this morning. So today we have Professor Knight Madden. She is a senior academic at the Sickle Cell Unit, Caribbean Institute for Health Research for the University of the West Indies, professor of pediatric pulmonology and clinical research. She completed training in medicine at the University of the West Indies, pediatrics at HSC Toronto, and pediatric pulmonology at Duke University. She completed a PhD at King's College London and a certificate in implementation science at the University of California, San Francisco. Her research interests include newborn screening, pulmonary complications of sickle cell disease, health services, and implementation research and clinical trials. She has published more than 80 peer reviewed articles and several book chapters. Professor Knight Madden became a member of the Mona Campus Research Ethics Committee in 2010 and was ad hoc chair of subgroup meetings from 2013 until 2021. And when she was seconded to the advisory panel on ethics and medical legal affairs of the Ministry of Health and Wellness. She has been chair of the advisory panel since. Slides? Yes? Hello, can you see my slide? Okay. Morning. And I'd like to thank the conference organizers for inviting me to be a part of this process, especially, of course, um, Alfonso, who was with CARE and is still a part of our family. So thank you, Mr. Blake. So today I'm going to be speaking about getting ethical approval. It's so central to our research. Now, you see that slide? I don't expect you to read everything there, but I just want you to know that I'm going through each of those things. So there is no such thing as a simple ethics proposal submission, because every submission should speak to all of these things. Even if you're doing a docket review, there needs to be ethical matters throughout the proposal. So, our pretest, how are we going to do this? All right. Are we able to do it from the back, from the poll? No, not seen Mr. Blake. All right. So, which stakeholder does the advisory panel prioritize when reviewing proposals? You can raise your hand for the answer that you think is appropriate. A, researchers. Anybody for researchers? B, students. Anybody for students? C, participants. Anybody for participants? Have a few, yes. D, sponsors. Anybody for sponsors? And E, organizations like the University of the West Indies or the Ministry of Health. Okay, we have a lot of abstention, but thank you for those brave souls who put up their hands for participants, because you are correct. All right, which law or regulation determines issues of patient confidentiality? Is it A, HIPAA? Anybody for HIPAA? Okay, good. B, Local Data Protection Act. C, Local Food and Drug Act. I say that because that's where our ethics committee sits. D, General Data Protection Regulation GDPR, which is the European Data Protection Act. E, the UWI Policy on Research Ethics. Again, the abstentions have it. Thank you for those who put up their hands for HIPAA. It's actually the Local Data Protection Act. However, I looked it up, and in the Bahamas, you guys need to catch up because yours is way behind. So in the Caribbean, everybody's redoing their Data Protection Act. So Barbados seems to be leading everything now. They did theirs, and then Jamaica, and they're actually based on the GDPR, and that's important because the confidentiality and privacy guidance in those acts is actually more than HIPAA. So when we share data with America, we have to be careful because we're going from, I'm talking from in Jamaica now, we're going from a higher level of confidentiality and privacy to a lower level. And so we have to put things into place. So yes, it should be our local Data Protection Act, which we need to update across the region. Who takes overall responsibility for the conformity with ethical guidelines? Now, guys, no abstentions this time. You got to choose something. A, the coordinator of the course. So if you're doing an MPH coordinator. B, the student doing the research for their degree. It's your degree and your research.
C, research supervisors of the students. D, the principal investigator. I see some hands. And E, the research ethics committee. Thank you for those brave souls. You are correct. It is the principal investigator. The principal investigator has to be somebody who actually has training in research and has knowledge of the subject of the research. They have to know about ethics because they take responsibility for every participant who is in that study. So just to say that, in making the slides, I looked at some sources. There's an updated Helsinki Declaration from 2024. If you haven't read it yet, please download it and read it. Just to say that the body that we follow in the Caribbean is CIOMS, the Council for International Organizations of Medical Sciences, which is a WHO led organization, and they have, through PAHO, so many resources available if you log on to that. And there are specific ethical considerations in resource limited settings. I'm not sure that Bahamas actually qualifies for that, probably not, but Jamaica still does. So you don't want people just coming and using up your participants and going away and you get no academic credit, right? We have to always be equals at the table. Of course, the Mona Campus Research Ethics Committee and the Jamaica Data Protection Act and the guidance that we give from the advisory panel. Just a word on research ethics committees. It's a little different here because you guys actually meet in person, but most of us don't meet in person. Most people on these committees are volunteers. They do this because they're committed to ethical research in their own setting. They have busy full-time careers and they review proposals late at night, after a full day of work, and on weekends. So don't tick them off. Just follow the guidelines now. Whatever committee you're sending your proposal to, follow the format that they require. It's very frustrating when you're doing this at midnight and you're like, really? So let's start at the beginning. These things sound so simple, but you would be amazed at how many people don't do this. The cover letter should be written by the principal investigator. That's who we communicate with. That's who we're holding responsible for the research. If you want your student to sign it with you, no problem. But you are the smuddy. Sorry, you are the person that we are holding responsible for this research. It must include the title of the proposal, say whether it's a student proposal, in which case you give the name of the student and the degree program. It needs to be dated and signed. I'm telling you, you get cover letters that are not signed. The title page. To your left, this is what you do for the University of the West Indies. That's your proposal. It has the title, a research project, submitted for which degree, and so and so and so. That is for the University of the West Indies. That is not for the Research Ethics Committee. Follow the guidelines. So for the advisory panel, on the page, we need the title, date, version, number, if it's not the first version, the name, the address, the contact of the PI, and all investigators. For the advisory panel, not everybody, not every research ethics committee will need this, but we need the site of research, the number of participants to be enrolled, and the duration of the study. Whatever they ask you for, do not just pick up your document from UWI and send it. Okay? Do what you are asked to do. Again, it sounds very simple, but table of contents needs to be there. Even if your proposal is 8 pages, make it 9 and put in a table of contents. Because sometimes we actually go to some things first. Like if your consent form is bad, then that can't be round robin or anything. That's coming back to full review the next time, because that is such an egregious error, because the consent form is so central to the ethics of the proposal and the research. So sometimes we use your table of contents and we go to specific things looking at them first because they are just so important. The summary. Each place has its own summary. This one is from the advisory panel, and we say 250 words should include the hypothesis, the scientific basis or justification, the usefulness, the significance, the benefits and risks. Again, a major, 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 major ethical thing. An outline of the design and steps to ensure confidentiality. And we also ask for you to say that you are going to observe fair selection of participants and conform to either our guidelines or another acceptable guideline. So many come that I would say, I'm not going to say, but a significant percentage of them come without those things. The idea is just follow what they ask you to do so you can get something back that says approved. Because it's very tiresome to say the same thing 5 times. Just anyway, next slide. All right, this is important. Now, on your form, the space for this is very small. So I don't know if you're encouraged to attach something else. But the introduction and literature review the introduction is going to give you real world significance, right? This is important, a general overview, but it also gives local context and significance. Whereas a literature review gives you the academic significance, the details of previous studies, and hear me now, it establishes equipoise. What a lovely sounding word. Equipoise. What is that? It means that there is a question. If I'm going to say, Bahamian men are taller than Jamaican men, and I am going to prove it in this research, and I tell you, everybody that said Bahamian men were taller than Jamaican men, and nobody that said Jamaican men are taller than Bahamian men, why are you doing the research? If we don't know it already, we don't need to go and involve other participants. If there is no equipoise, if there is an outright bias, then you're going to have problems getting approved. So even if you are a doctor, I'm picking on doctors since I'm a doctor, working in a healthcare center, and you think everybody's burnt out, and you think they're burnt out because of understaffing, and you say, we are going to show that the doctors in my health center are overworked and so they're burnt out, and this is what this study is for. That can't be approved like that. Because maybe they're burnt out for another reason. And maybe they're not as burnt out as you think. And maybe if you compare them to a different region, that region is more burnt out. So there's this thing of equipoise and a lack of and avoiding bias. And then if there are like 3 different ways of checking for burnout, there's burnout by Brown, burnout by Smith, and burnout by Rogers. And you tell me that these 3 exist, and then at the end, you're using burnout by Rogers. And I don't know why. Tell me in your literature review, so I'll know that, well, Rogers was done in LMIC settings and this and that, and so this is why we're choosing this one over the others. So by the time I finish the introduction and literature review, I can see that there are gaps in the literature, and that these are important gaps, and that somebody needs to do this research. What a good thing you decide to do this research, because it's clearly needed. And then when I move on to your aims, your research question, your objectives, it's completely set up already, because I understand why you're doing it. Now, you might think that that's none of my business. Just look at the ethics of it and get on with life. If it's not, if the justification is not there, it's not ethical. Because some participant is going to be put at some risk, even if it's minimal risk. It might be exposure of their records. So there must be some justification that is viable for it to be ethical. So then you bring it all together and you say, this is my justification, this is my rationale, and it should be in keeping with the scope of the project. So back to my doctor who is working in a health center in a region in Jamaica who says my research is going to end burnout in all doctors in the Caribbean. Hello? My little research in one health center is going to affect the whole of Caribbean. Be realistic. Be realistic. You can say that, there are limitations in scope and this and that, but my research may add to the literature that over time may help to decrease burnout in physicians in Jamaica or something like that. But be very realistic. We are not impressed by huge benefits that are very far from the research you're actually doing. It doesn't make us think, oh, wow. It does maybe the opposite because we're like, all right. So here comes the research supervisor in me. This is the heart of every research project. The research question is the heart of every research project because your introduction and literature review tell me why you're going to do this. Your methods tell me how you're going to do this. Your results tell me what was the answer to that question. And your discussion tells me why does it matter when you put it back into the literature. So if the research question doesn't make sense, it doesn't make sense. So spend the time making sure that your research question is focused and specific and it is worthwhile. And then you move on to your objectives, and everybody knows that objectives should be SMART. They should be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And it's the same thing with research objectives. And again, they must be based on that introduction and literature review, and they must lead to the methods and procedures. So you see, there's a natural flow. When you're reading through the proposal, it just makes sense. Again, your study design must make sense based on the objectives. So are you going to do quantitative research? Are you going to do qualitative research? Are you going to do mixed methods research? It only depends on the research question. If I am doing are Bahamian men taller than Jamaican men, I do not need a focus group to discuss it. I just need to measure the men. Right? But if I'm doing this project on burnout in physicians in this health center, then maybe we need to really sit down with them and find out on a deeper level what are the things that they are experiencing that might look like burnout. Or is it actually burnout? So I might do a questionnaire, a burnout questionnaire, and then I might do focus groups and then I triangulate the data. So as the research ethics committee, I look at your study design and I say, does this make sense given your question? Sometimes it sounds so straightforward, right? But let me say it. Your methods must speak to every objective and must include every objective. So you can't say my objectives are 1, 2, 3, 4, and then questionnaire 1 deals with objective 1. Focus group deals with objective 2. Records review deals with objective 3. And poor objective 4 is just flapping in the wind. There's nothing in the methods about objective 4. So either you put something in your methods about objective 4, you take out objective 4. But it has to follow. Because remember, the bottom line is, I want to be sure that it makes sense for the participants to be part of your research. So if objective 4 is critical to your research, so suppose we go back to those doctors and objective 4 is actually to determine whether or not doctors have burnout. And you don't have a tool. and you don't have any way of figuring that out, then everything else you're doing makes no sense. So I'm going to say, no, you cannot invite participants to your focus group because what you're doing makes no sense. And remember, what I think you need is not based on me, it's based on your introduction, your literature review, your research question, and your own objective. I'm not imposing myself on you. What I'm saying is, whatever you say you want to do it well. So, this is something that a lot of people have issues with. Why do ethics committees get so up in your methods? Why don't they just stick with ethics? The answer to that question is methodologically unsound research is unethical. And it also has to be feasible. So if you say that you are going to do a questionnaire and you're going to invite every doctor in the whole of the Bahamas to fill out this questionnaire, I don't know, maybe it's feasible here, not so much in Jamaica, right? So make sure that it is feasible. Your methods are feasible. Or if you are a student and you don't have any grant and you want to use a tool that is not open source, but you're supposed to pay $10 per tool used, but you have no grant, it doesn't add up, right? So it has to be feasible. All right. This is a big one, so let me take my time. Fair selection of subjects means that you are going to recruit people based on your research question and what makes sense. So please don't write in your proposal that the researcher lives in Nassau, and so it makes sense to recruit in Nassau because then I don't have to drive anywhere. It's very convenient. That is not fair selection of subjects. So you're going to tell me that um, the University of the West Indies is in Nassau, and the question is asking whether university faculty have burnout. So I'm going to do it here because that's what my question needs. Or, you're a nurse in Portland, in Jamaica, and you say you're going to do it in Portland because this question has been asked so many times in cities, but nobody has done a rural look at it. And Portland is rural, so I'm choosing to do it in Portland. That makes sense, right? So don't put the ethics committee in a bind, right? By saying, I'm really not doing fair selection of subjects. I'm just doing what makes sense for me because it's convenient. No. Similarly, you work out your sample size, you must show your sample size calculation. Let me say that again, just for emphasis. You must show your sample size calculation because you have to, you cannot say, or maybe you should not say, other studies use this sample size. I have seen some really interesting stretches. So you're doing are Bahamian men taller than Jamaican men? And you use a study that shows that Tanzanian women are heavier than Nigerian women. And that was the sample size. And you say, so I can use that sample size. Really? No. So the other thing is that if you're really working out a sample size, you have to have a sense of the effect size. So if you're doing something in 100 of these people and 100 of those people, And the change of your intervention causes two people to be different. You probably need 1,000 people. But if you're doing it in 100 people and 100 people, and your intervention causes 20 people to be different, then maybe I can, you have to go work it out. But the effect size is bigger, so you need a smaller sample size. But please show us your sample size calculations. Now, this one comes straight out of the new Data Protection Act in Jamaica. You cannot, as a holder of the data, give personal information to a researcher without permission. So, as the registrar of the University of the West Indies and somebody wants to do research on students, you can't just pick up your whole student database, name, date of birth, where they come from, and just hand it to the researcher. And you say, well, it's just retrospective, da 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 da. No, my personal data is my personal data, and I didn't give you permission to give it to anybody. So there has to be clear reasons and a clear appreciation of the person's privacy. And in that, sometimes you also run into, as a clinician now, you may run into therapeutic misconception. So somebody has been coming to the sickle cell unit from the born, and I've been there from before them born. And every time they see me, I am there to make them better. That is my reason to be a clinician. And then I say, there's this new drug, and we think it might be really good. They just see me as a person who makes them better clinically, so they're going to sign up for anything I ask them to. Right? That's a therapeutic misconception where the person actually thinks that this is for my good, not that I'm flicking a coin and you might get the drug or you might get the placebo. You might not get anything. But guess what? There's worse. Suppose you get the drug and the drug is bad for you. So there's actually been a sickle cell drug that's been withdrawn from the market because after the clinical trial that showed it worked, children started to die in Africa. Right? Suppose one of my children is dead. Oh man, I could get over that. Right? So make it abundantly clear. And ideally, if I'm the doctor in this clinic, I shouldn't be the one, nor my nurse, recruiting people because they cannot say no. They cannot say no because they're wondering, why? If I say no, maybe when I come back, I'll have to wait a longer time. Or if you're the head of the penitentiary and somebody wants to recruit prisoners, and you come into the prison at lunchtime and say, hear me, we're doing a study. All you need to sign up. That is coercion because they can't say no. Those are vulnerable populations, like prisoners, like children, like pregnant women. But also, even if it's not a vulnerable population, if the person, say teachers, they're not vulnerable. But if the principal is the one doing the recruiting, there is a problem. So these things are not intuitive. You might not think it's a problem for the principal to recruit teachers, but there is a problem. So you actually need somebody who is not supervising them, who can come and say, some people are doing this research. It does include the principal. But nobody will know whether or not you did the research. And if you refuse to do the research, it's not going to affect your career as a teacher. And furthermore, if you sign up to do the research and you go home and your husband tell you don't do it, and you agree with him, you can withdraw and it won't affect your career as a teacher. Right? You get me? These are ethical issues that are very, very important because people must be able to volunteer for research, give informed consent. Now, this one is sticky for me. You cannot use the data that you have as a clinician to reach out to people for research in Jamaica anymore. So, our days of, oh, let's just do some kind of a query, come up with people, call them on the phone, and no. There has to be some way of getting permission. So we are going through the process of actually having some kind of a general consent form for people. So that's illegal. So it's illegal. One day, one day. Um, but these are changes. So this is the thing about ethics. I've been in ethics for a while, and things that would have been accepted 15 years ago are no longer accepted. So the fact that you did it 15 years ago doesn't mean you can do it now, because the field has evolved. And in general, in the world, people's personhood and identity here. I never saw that before. Everything that is in an inclusion or exclusion criteria from anywhere in the proposal. Let me just say it now. I'll say it again later, but for emphasis. Everything in the consent form must be in the proposal itself too. Everything that is relevant to the patient in the proposal must be in the consent form. And it cannot be that your inclusion and exclusion criteria overlap. That sounds pretty obvious, right? You can't be included and excluded at the same time. But that is important. This one is tough. So we used to talk about minimal risk, moderate risk, severe risk. Now we mostly talk about minimal risk, a minor increase above minimal risk, and more than a minor increase above minimal risk. This is the approach of SIAMs of PAHO. Minimal risk is what happens in your life when you're not doing research. It's your day-to-day stuff, right? So anything that is not normally happening in your life is not minimal risk. If I am talking about the number of times that somebody with sickle cell disease has had mild bone pain, when I talk to them, it shouldn't cause much problems, right? But on the way other end of the spectrum, so if I'm talking about when you were assaulted or something like that, where it's almost guaranteed to bring up negative emotions and make you go through things that are difficult, that's more than a minor increase above minimal risk. And you are going to have to tell me how you mitigate that risk. Are you going to have somebody available to do counseling? Oh, so you say there's somebody available to do counseling, but did you tell me who pays for it? So you're inviting this participant into your study. They're participating in your study. As a result of their participation, they now have mental health issues, and you expect them to go pay for a counselor? Really? Hmm. You'd be surprised how often we see things like that. Or, they can call the National Mental Health Hotline. That's free. I'm just saying, think it through. Everybody in my family, except for my grandmother, because she was in her 90s, has been a participant in some kind of research voluntarily, even my children. But when you are doing research, really think about it. If that was your mother, your sister, your spouse, or your child, how would you feel about them doing this research? because participants are people. And what the ethics committee wants to know is that the benefit of doing the research outweighs the risk. So, will we approve high risk studies? Absolutely. But there must be benefit. No, the benefit to the person is most important. But we do sometimes take into account benefit for the greater good. But if it's high risk, you're looking for benefit to the person. So if you have some disease and you're in ICU and the chances of your dying are 60%, and this intervention is not yet proven, but in animals it worked, in healthy adults it was not, it wasn't causing complications, and there is a lot of data in your introduction and your literature review to show that it may well bring the death rate down from 60% to maybe 40, then we might look at that risk benefit and think that's something we could do, something we could approve of. But compensation and benefits are not the same. So if you're giving them compensation, all right, so it gets a little technical. So if they have to take a bus or a taxi to come and you're giving them back the taxi fare, technically that's not compensation in the sense that you're repaying some out of pocket expense. But if you're giving something, then that's compensation. But a benefit is something that's non monetary. And I've seen some real interesting benefits. Like, I'm going to fill out a questionnaire on being burnt out, and that's going to help me to learn about burnout? No, no. If after you have a information sheet that shares, that is for the purpose of teaching somebody about burnout, that's a different thing. Oh, participating in my research is going to allow them to speak about this thing and so they'll feel much better. No, they might feel much worse. So please don't put it as a benefit. And the fact that it will help you to get your degree, don't put that. Please don't put that. All right. So you're again, the benefit must be reasonably linked to the project, not fixing the world, and always impact on the individual is more important than on the general good. You have to actually have a good reason to ask somebody their date of birth now. There has to be something that that date of birth is giving you that their age can't give you. Not to mention, you see this? This is the most identifiable thing. Make sure that if you're using people's faces in any way in your research, you have very specific permissions for that, especially if they're children. But if you have a focus group and you use an alias, but you keep that recording even after you've gotten all the transcription done, and it falls into somebody else's hands, and they say, "Oh, what was Prof. Knight Madden saying?" Because they just hear my voice, and they know it's me. Right? Similarly, the more in-depth data are, the more likely that individuals can be identified. So none of these data are specifically identifiable. But if I say a male psychiatrist between the ages of 40 and 60 working at the Princess Margaret Hospital in Nassau, none of those individually are identifiable, but there might only be one or two people like that in the world. Right? So you have to be careful that you're not putting people at risk, especially if it's more than minimal risk. So suppose what it is it's a study that says, what are the problems with the Princess Margaret Hospital? Why don't things work? Right? And those questions are answered. And then when you report it, you don't group people in such a way that nobody can know who said that. No, I want to critical. But people say critical. But people say something like the person will be asked for informed consent. Um, um, or the study will only be done when people give informed consent. Signing the form is supposed to be the proof of the process of informed consent. When the person signed the form, you're supposed to be able to say to them, so tell me about this project now. And they're supposed to be able to tell you what will happen to them. They're supposed to be able to tell you the risks, the benefits, that they can withdraw, that they don't have to sign. When they sign that paper and it's witnessed, all it is saying is that this is supposed to be their documentation of that process. So just getting people to sign a consent form without them truly being informed is unethical. Right? So the consent form should be understandable, like at maybe the grade 6 level, and avoid jargons. I have seen consent forms that I can't understand. And I've been to school a lot. As we said, the person obtaining consent must not be in a position of power. And unless it puts a person in jeopardy or is not possible, like an online survey, it should be witnessed and written. Right? So if you are doing a survey about domestic violence, you probably don't want a written signed consent, because somehow that might get back to Mr. and Miss might get beat up. Right? So again, what does it come back to? The participant. So I'm not going to go through all of this. This is available online about the process, but consent must be freely given and they must understand. And if they can't give consent, you must have a legally authorized representative. You must sign and date the consent, and it's all about the participant. And anything that's in the consent form has to be in the body of the proposal. I cannot be meeting up on important things about the study when I'm reading the consent form, because the consent form come at the end, And I've read through your whole proposal, and this is the first time I'm finding out that the person has to come 4 times in between clinic visits, and you didn't tell me that anywhere. No. We talked about therapeutic misconception already and influence. And the content of the informed consent form is available online. So let's just go to fair selection of subjects. A statement affirming that subjects were selected only because of the specific problem under investigation and not because of their easy availability, diminished autonomy, or due to social bias. So you're giving out phone cards. So you go to the most inner city place where people actually really would like a phone card and you recruit there. No. Unless it's a question about inner city places. All right? And a statement affirming that it will be conducted in conformity to a particular ethical guideline. Vulnerable participants, we're going to double down on the risk benefit. There must be more benefit than risk for vulnerable populations. But does that, things have changed. It used first time, used to say don't include vulnerable populations in research. But no, you're saying, but if you don't include them, they don't benefit from research. Because guess what? Remember, when the benefit outweighs the risk, participants benefit from research. Society benefits from research. So don't get me wrong. I want research to happen. But my constituency is a participant, not y'all. Even if you work in the same department as me, I am still looking at it from the participant's point of view. Briefly, overseas collaborators, there must be a local PI. I cannot go up to Harvard and pull down Professor so and so and say, what happened to Jane Doe in Jamaica? I need somebody in Jamaica who has taken full responsibility for Jane Doe. And if there's a problem, that's who I'm going to go and speak to. So it could be the most eminent person from abroad. We are still going to say, who is a Jamaican PI? If you're a student doing your project in an overseas university and you have supervisors over there, some of the students are not even from the region. They just choose to do something about the region. So the student, the university, the supervisor, all abroad. Who am I going to ask when something happens to Jane Doe? Think about it. Would you like that? That your mother is participating in a study and nobody in the Bahamas have any say to say about it? And research ethics is a funny thing. You read it and you say something, and you read it and you say something else. So even if other outside ethics committees have said it's okay, we're going to look at it. And we're going to require data sharing agreements, material transfers agreement. If you're sending any material, blood, urine, worse DNA, we need a written legal agreement. So what are they going to do with the samples? After your liquor study, they're going to keep the Bahamian samples and just keep use them up and do all kind of things with them. If so, not to say it can't happen, but Jane Doe in Bahamas have to say, yeah, I don't have a problem with it, make them go on. But ask her. Let her say yes or no. And because you guys need to update your Data Protection Act, you do fall under UWI in some sense. You want to have your research at the same standard as would be permitted there and elsewhere. And if it's being done in a LMIC, the LMIC must benefit from participation in multi-center trials. They can't just come to Jamaica because we have plenty sickle cell. Recruit up a whole heap of participants, and neither participants nor site are really benefiting from that. Data analysis must be thought about upfront. Otherwise, you're going to run into a heap of hurt at the end when you realize that you didn't get the data that you needed to actually answer the question. And the type of data and how to analyze it, you actually need to think about it upfront. Research that is not, my fingers always type that word wrong. That is not shared was a waste of the participants' time and effort. Research is to be shared. If it's even in a local conference, it is to be shared. And you must say the limitations and how you're going to mitigate those limitations. Boy, by the time you reach the references, your head hurting, you're tired, and you're like, what? Come on, guys. This is not your supervisor or you as a faculty. You're supposed to know better than this, man. Be consistent in the in-text citations. Be consistent in the bibliography. Have complete citations. And if you're citing a book or a book chapter or an online document, use the proper thing. Like for online document, you must say the date it was downloaded. For a book or a book chapter, where was it published? Who are the publishers? Things like that, right? There are, you can Google it. But let me tell you what happened. You see, when you reach to the reference part and it's sloppy, you kind of think, these researchers are going to be careful with my participants because they're my participants, I'm the ethics. I'm supposed to protect them from sloppy people. So we're not going to stop a proposal for research, for reference problem. But it may make me go back and look more carefully because I'm saying these guys are not serious. Tools, Whether it's a questionnaire, data extraction sheet, you have to submit them. Must make sense based on your objectives and have permissions. I see people using questionnaire when I go online. It's not open source. You can't just pick up people's questionnaires and use them. You have to get permission if it's not open source, right? And if you're going to change it and amend it, then you can't say, well, it is validated and you have changed it. You have to go validate again. So, and if you change it, you have to send it back. Let us look at it again. You must have letters of support for places where you plan to do the research and have the letters to persons from whom permissions are being sought. You must have the letters to the other research ethics committees that you have to go to. And a note on that, just send it to everybody one time. Know who you need to send to and send to everybody one time. So in Jamaica, they might have to send to UWI because every member of faculty, regardless of what research you're doing, it's supposed to go to UWI's ethics. And if it's not on the campus, it has to come to the advisory panel at ministry. And then if it's down in Portland, they might have to send it to the Northeast Regional Health Authority. So just do everything one time. Get all your comments one time. Fix it up for everybody and send it again. Don't go one, then the other, because you will never get through. And when you're resubmitting, just answer in detail. You get from us, you get a table. Cover letter not signed by PI. Your response. Cover letter now signed. In the track changes version, you see the signature as a track change. And in the clean version, the signature is there. You have not put the site of the research. Site of the research now there. Track changes, the site is. Clean version, the site is. You get me? When I'm doing at 11 o'clock at night, it's so easy. They tell me what page number. You make my life easy. But when I pick it up, and you say, oh, you can't find nothing. The track changes and the clean don't match. You left out some of my comments. All right. Hostess. Which stakeholder does the advisory panel prioritize when reviewing proposals? A, researchers. B, students. C, participants. Hello, you're supposed to put up your hand. Oh, I'm sorry. You all are bashful. Okay. You can say it. You don't have to put up your hand. You can say it. All right. Whoop. Down. Which law or regulation determines the issues of patient confidentiality? A, HIPAA. B, Local Data Protection Act. C, B. Who takes overall responsibility for the conformity with ethical guidelines? D. Thank you. I'm open for questions if I have time.
Thank you so much, Professor Knight Madden. I just recently finished my research, so this was a really good review of all of the ups and downs that we had to go through as residents. I want to thank you so much for navigating us through those steps and giving us practical skills in how we can avoid delays in getting our ethical approval. I want to take the opportunity now to open the floor for any questions. We do have a short time, so if you have any questions, please raise your hand and the mic will come to you. Right here in the front in the pink.
Good morning. Excellent presentation, by the way. I really liked it. One question, you had mentioned a little bit earlier when we were talking about informed consent, that there are some populations, some vulnerable populations, especially those who might have gotten into problems. You had mentioned they might not be able to sign because it could be traced back to them, they could get injured again. Not saying that everyone has to do it, but in those cases, they really want to do this research. What can they do in that situation? I don't know if I missed it.
No, they can. You can. That is a situation where you might take verbal consent, right? So the person goes through the informed consent process with you and then says to you, Miss Jane Doe, I'm not going to ask you to sign for, the reasons that we've discussed, but are you willing to do the research? And then they sign and say that Jane Doe consented on such and such a time. And sometimes what you do is actually have two people there so that you can both sign to document that the person has. Similarly, for the online questionnaires, obviously I'm not there, but what you can say is, having read this information sheet, if you give consent, then click next. So clicking next is your written informed consent.
And sorry, just making it clear. So you would not include that person's name. You would just write informed consent was given at this point in time.
Right.
By you and the witness.
Right.
Okay.
So you would probably write it to say that it was an anonymous. And sometimes in things like that, you go through like homes for battered women or groups for battered women and so on. So what you do is you send out what you're doing and let them reach out to you to say, I'm willing, and then you fit in with what you can get to them. And then at the time, it's anonymous, so you wouldn't necessarily need their name or anything. So in every risk benefit is, I want to know, this is a highly vulnerable population. How are you protecting the participant?
Thank you.
3 more minutes, Dr. Oh, okay, no problem. Right in the
Good morning, Doc. Yeah, excellent presentation. Wonderful overview. So my question
of consent. No. That's of consent. No. That's like for a retrospective chart review.
Yes. Yes.
So what you have to tell me is, one, this is really important. So set me up with your introduction and literature review that you justify this study, that it is for the public good. 2, it's minimal risk because you're going to use de-identified data. Once you get the data, there'll be no identifiers anywhere on it. And 3, it is not feasible to get consent. I can't find these people. I can't go get these people. I just can't do it. So if you can make that case that it is minimal risk, that it is not feasible to get consent from people, and that you will right, then okay. The other thing that sometimes happens is, sometimes instead of getting informed consent, and you can read the SIAM's documents on this, you might try to opt out, right? So people get an information sheet. So sometimes that happens with parents at school. You get a thing that says, if you don't want your child to be a part of this study, please check, sign, and send back. And then I will not include your child. But if you do not do that, then we're going to assume consent. Again, has to be minimal risk, and other things need to be in place. But that is also an option in the SIAM's guideline.
Thank you very much for an excellent presentation, Dr. Naimadan. And just want to support the caution for international researchers coming into our region. And I remember one case where we had somebody who came in, wanted to do research on the sickle cell population. And when it came to asking them, so I see you have no protection for us if something happens while they're on the drug, but you have protection for the participants in the US. So what are you going to do about that? Well, if they get sick, they could come to your public hospital. I said, no, that's not enough. And we walked away from that. I mean, they wanted to incite to, give us extra this and extra that. I said, no, it's not good for my patient not to have the same protection that you have for the US population. So you need to be able to assure me that you would have something in place. And I think that, as PIs, as senior people, we need to really look out for our patients and make sure that we don't put them at undue risk, because that just wouldn't be right. Thank you.
And more than that, you can actually push for benefits. So like, If you're trying a drug and the research shows that it works, my participants should get free drug until it's approved in my country.
Actually, the drug in that case was actually taken off. They
Yeah, I know.
disregarded that.
Right,
But
yeah.
no, it was just amazing that they would see us as the people who would be interested in participating with nothing as a benefit.
Right. So that's justice, right? Justice says that if you can get it there, you must be able to get it here. Right?
Thank you, everyone, for your questions. Gonna close the floor for questioning now. We have 2 minutes for everybody to just stand up, stretch. We do have a coffee break, but it's going to be at the end. So I want everybody to stand up, stretch their legs. Let's get the circulation going. If you do need to use the restroom, now would be the time so that you could pop out. But I need everyone seated in 2 minutes, literally 120 seconds. Okay? Thank you. Continuing with just some housekeeping to keep cell phones on silent while we're in the room. And please remember to visit Sunshine Learner to give your feedback at the end of the session. Thank you. Thank you for those that followed the 120 minutes. I think I gave you double that. Starting in 20 seconds. I think I doubled that. So if everybody can come in and have a seat so we could start our second part of the session. Just as a reminder, our coffee break has been sponsored by Nestle. So at the end of this session, you can go ahead back outside and engage with them. So moving on to our second speaker for this morning, Carrie Ann Blake is an epidemiologist with professional interests spanning statistics and project management. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Biochemistry and a Master of Science in Epidemiology from the University of the West Indies. Her career began at the Caribbean Institute for Health Research in Jamaica, where she managed large multi-site projects funded by Yale University's HET Foundation, the National Institutes of Health, and UK Research and Innovation. She has trained research teams in ethics, fieldwork, and data management using the REDCap platform. Carrie also holds certifications in project management, data science, grant writing, and scientific writing, which enhance her multidisciplinary approach to research. She is a former statistician tutor at UWI, and today she channels that enthusiasm into her work as an epidemiologist and project management consultant, guiding postgraduate students and commercial institutions through all phases of the research process, from project conceptualization to data analysis, interpretation, and dissemination. A published researcher and part-time reviewer for the West Indian Medical Journal, Carrie Ann remains committed to advancing scientific inquiry within the Caribbean and beyond. Her philosophy is grounded in perseverance, inspired by Harriet Beecher Stowe's words, "Never give up, for that is just the place and time that the tide will turn." Outside of work, she values balance and connection, deliberately stepping away from screens to enjoy time in nature, reading, spending time with family and friends, and feeding her competitive spirit on the tennis court. Let's welcome Carrie Ann Blake as she discusses navigating the research electronic data capture platform known as REDCap.
Thank you, Dr. Ferguson. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Yes. So, Prof. Knight Madden would have set the tone for us in terms of getting ethical approval. And once you've gotten that approval and done all the other necessary things you need to do, you're ready to collect your data. So I'm here to tell you about REDCap, which stands for Research Electronic Data Capture, and how you can use it to collect your data for your studies. So even though I'm here telling you about REDCap, I'm in no way affiliated with the organization. And I just wanted to share with you a passage of scripture that keeps me motivated, because sometimes research can be daunting. It can be tedious. There are many aspects to go through. So this is something that I keep near and dear to my heart. Today, I want to talk to you about creating your project on REDCap, creating your instrument. We're going to learn how to manage our data, and then we might go into how to use our tablet to collect data in a Wi-Fi free environment, which is my favorite aspect of REDCap. So what is REDCap? REDCap is a user-friendly, it's a platform that you can just create your questions on, manage your surveys on it, and you can, as I mentioned before, you can collect data both online and offline, and it's free to non-profit organizations. We're going to get into that in a bit. I pulled a screen grab and I realized that REDCap is being used in over 164 countries. And then this map shows you all the dots where REDCap is being used currently. See properly? Yes. And I did zoom in a little bit further, and I just noticed that it's not yet being used in the Bahamas. So that's all I'm going to say on that. So how do you get access to RedCap? I said that it is free. But free does not mean open source. And open source means it's available to the public and anyone can go on, get it, modify it, etc. It was built by Vanderbilt University in 2004. And as I said, it's free for non-profit organizations. So if your work centers around collecting data and you're not trying to turn a profit from it or gain any money from it, such as a research institution or a government organization, you can get a license to work with RedCap. So your company will have to get into that license agreement, and there's a QR code you can scan if you need more details on that. But let's say you're here and your company is for profit. You can use RedCap at a cost. So there's a RedCap Cloud, and there's even the Vanderbilt RedCap website. And some of you may be thinking, oh, can I use RedCap? It's not necessarily available for individual use. So I, Carrie Ann, cannot just get up and say, oh, I'm going to collect data. Let me go and use RedCap. You have to be affiliated with an organization to use it. So how do you get access? Once your organization has that license agreement with RedCap, RedCap assigns a RedCap administrator to each organization or to each company. And that person is responsible for creating your username and your login. So you contact your RedCap administrator and they will give you the login credentials. If you are a UWI student, UWI Mona has its own RedCap platform. So your supervisor or course coordinator, whoever, can send an email on your behalf for you to get access to the platform. And if you're a member of faculty, you have to just log into the platform with your regular UWI credentials. So that might be your ID number and whatever password you use for your email. One moment. Okay, you saw all that I have in store for you. All right. So you might be looking on the screen and you've maybe seen some programs that you're familiar with. And I want to just discuss, why would you need to use RedCap if you have these other platforms available like Excel and stuff, and you can use them for free? And Prof. Knight Madden touched on it. One, your data is secure. RedCap is adherent to multiple user guidelines or data compliance sites, and I've highlighted two that are relevant in the Caribbean, which is HIPAA and GDPR. And I also saw in the news last week that data security is very relevant in the Bahamas now, because your Prime Minister is talking about getting your new Data Protection Act up to speed and everything like that. So you too should be thinking about how you're going to collect and protect your data. It allows for validated data entry. And what do I mean by that? It has various methods to prevent data entry errors. And we're going to go into that as well. You can track who accessed your RedCap data. You can track when they made the changes, what time they made the changes, and what change they made. A lot of other platforms don't offer that. Also, you can assign controls. So if I have a study and I have different people on my team, I have a data collector, and I want my data collector to only be able to upload information, I can do that. I have my project manager. My project manager can do anything they want. They can rename, they can download the data, they can upload the data. And I have my statistician, and they can download the data, but only a de-identified version. So when they download this data, they won't get any kind of personal identifiers like the person's name, address, if I would have collected that information. It allows for data quality checks. So even after you've collected your data, there's a tool on it that you can actually sum the data and see what is missing, what is mixed matched, and any kind of errors that are existing in your data. The tool allows you to check that as well. And most importantly, especially in my area as a statistician, it allows for seamless exports to other tools that you're going to use to analyze your data. And this is important because when you're uploading your data, or when you're creating your questionnaire, rather, you can code your data. And what do I mean by code? Code is just assigning a numerical value to whatever fields you're collecting. So if you're looking at gender, you want to enter female as 0, male as 0, female as 1. And this is because this is how your software is going to recognize your information. It's not going to read text, but the software really understands 1s and 0s. So it allows you to do that at the front end. So when you get to the analysis portion, you're not in a headache trying to recode the data. Because a lot of times, statisticians, they will tell you that they spend 80% of their time cleaning messy data sets. So it allows you from the beginning to organize your data, so the analysis process is seamless. And my favorite, it allows for offline data capture. So when I was back home, I would go into various areas. So we have the rural areas, we have inner city areas where we're working, and we can't necessarily take out a laptop and be collecting information. I can put, you know, right? I can put my information on a phone, on a tablet, and be able to go interview whoever I need to interview 12 people for the day, go home, upload it to RedCap, and my data is there. And it also allows for longitudinal studies. So this is even if you're not necessarily, if you're tracking people over a time period, over their life, it allows for that and keeps the information organized. It allows automations. You can send emails, reminders. And even if you're not necessarily doing research, you can host your database on RedCap. So if you're in pharmaceuticals, probably client information, doses and stuff, you're not using to collect data, but you can store information on it as well. So some of you would have received an email, and we want this session to be interactive. So I just gave you an overview of RedCap, but if you have your laptops, if you have your tablets out, you can log in. You should have received, an email just letting you know that an account was created for you if you would have registered at a particular time. If not, that's fine. I'm going to share my screen so we can all follow along. But here is the website for the UWI platform that you can scan the QR code, or you can just go on the link to just go on RedCap right now, and we're going to go through it together. All right, so follow me. As I said, RedCap is used by various institutions. So the UWI RedCap platform is not the same as, like, say, the Yale platform or any other college. So I cannot take my login credentials and go to Yale's RedCap to try and log in. So your platform is unique to your institution. So always remember that. So you have to get the right link to be able to access your own platform. Logging in, it's very straightforward. And I always tell people, you should use RedCap to collect your data. And they're like, I don't know how to use it. Trust me. If you can manage using any kind of social media platform, or even using Google Forms, you can use RedCap. That's all I'm saying. So this is the RedCap homepage, and it shows you all the projects that you're assigned to, and you'll be able to just see at a glance what's going on in your project. So this is my RedCap homepage, and there are different sections. You have records that tell you how much data you've collected. For my first field, I would have collected 558 records. Fields, just the number of questions you have, instruments, different tools, types, because RedCap allows you to do surveys as well, inclusive of regular questionnaires. And status. Are you actively collecting data? Are you in the process of developing your questionnaire? Are you in the analysis phase? Just at a glance, it tells you what's happening. So the first thing you need to do when you get access is to create your own project for RedCap. And you just go to the top section here, which says My Projects. It's very straightforward. You complete the section with your details, the name of your project, etc. When you have the purpose of the project, you can select anyone which applies to you. For this project, you would have been added to, I just selected practice for fun, because we're just gonna go create different things in it. But if you're doing your research and you select research, the option research, you're gonna have a little bit more to fill out. And it's just really information about your principal investigator and what you're using your research for. It's optional, but just don't be alarmed when you see it if it comes up. And you send it off to the administrator. You get this message, and you wait for an email that your RedCap account has been created. That's so simple, right? All right, so now our project has been created. We're in our project landing page. So is anybody able to follow along on RedCap? You're logged in, you're looking, and you can get beside someone who's actually doing it as well. I don't mind. You're in your project landing page and you see some things and you're like, what's this saying? So to the left, we have the navigation bar and you'll use it to find the different things you're interested in. Not gonna go through it all right now. I'm just gonna show you what matters. And then we have the page setup. And it's really just telling you what's happening if you look at it in greater detail. But it's not necessarily important. But I want to show you that there are many different ways, there are a few different ways to create your instrument, to create your tool. And I just want to say something about this as well. When you're creating your tool, and Prof. Knight Madden would have said it as well, you need to use something that has been previously validated. So you cannot just get up and create a questionnaire, especially if you're collecting, doing research for your project. You cannot just get up and create a questionnaire. You have to use a previously validated tool. And if it is that you need to pay for it, you have to do that. The good thing about RedCap is that it also has some tools already uploaded on the database. So if you happen to be doing something on quality of life, or if you need something like a tool that's created on demographics, some socio-demographics, it's already there, so you don't have to create something from scratch. But in our case, we're going to create something from scratch. The easiest way to do this is the online designer. And I guess it's all relative based on your level, but at the beginner stage, it's the online designer. You also have the data dictionary, which is very complex if you ask me, using Excel. You can use the RedCap shared library, which is what I told you about, like the preloaded projects, and a zip file, which is like a Word document, but that's also very complex. So we're ready to collect data. We go to the navigation bar and we see this section here that says edit instruments. No, we want to create our instrument. So it takes us to the online designer and you just select create it at the beginning of your study, but don't ever try to rename it after you've collected your data because it will delete everything. Right? But there are safeguards against that because you can put your data in production mode, which means that you can't make any edits, so it wouldn't allow for any kind of deletion of any kind of information. To edit the record ID or to edit any kind of field that you have, there's a little pencil icon that we're going to click on, and it's going to take us to the editor. So when you're in the editor, this is what it looks like. You'll see field label, variable name, field label and variable name. That's what we're paying attention to right now. Field label is where you're going to put your question. What is your age? What is your height? Where do you live? And variable name is your record ID. It's almost kind of like programming if you think of it. It wants you to enter a specialized name for this without any spaces. So you use all lower caps and underscores if you need to use a space. That's all it is. It's just a name for it. And as I said before, don't change the record ID variable after you've started collecting your data. And now that that's done, we're going to go on create our questions and you'll click the add field. And this section is just showing you the different types of fields that you can collect. And that's what excites me about RedCap. I can collect any kind of information I need. It's very flexible. And collecting this information, all you have to do is just complete the field label, the variable name, and the field note. So let us jump in to RedCap right now. I created a questionnaire and we're just gonna look at the different fields, what it can be used for, so that we can get a better understanding. So I want to do a registry and I'm creating a tool to collect the information that I need. This has already been approved. I'm going to go into the edit instrument section and then I see my instrument name. I would have called it demographics, but when you go into there, it's not just demographics, it's whatever we put in there just for the purpose of this presentation. All right, so the text field. Very simple. Collecting a person's name. And it also allows you to collect dates. So if you want to collect like what is today's date, you can go into the field label, select text box, and then you do the validation and you select date. Are we seeing that? Yes. So when you do it, all it does is that it shows you a little calendar when you're trying to say, okay, record the date. It's very easy. Or if it's today, you just select today and it just puts the date there. You can also do date of birth, which is what is commonly used for. But I did all of this to show you that REDCap has a field or a field that you can use to do any kind of calculation. So if I'm doing a study and it's probably like a survival analysis study and we're doing it over time, and at this visit, I want to find out what the person's age is. You can create the age field from before at the first visit. And then when you create today's date, your calculated field is going to tell you what the participant's age is. So you just go to the field label, select calculated field. It gives you the participant's. You type in, oh, this field is collecting participant's age, and you put in your equation. This looks cumbersome, right? How am I going to know this? The beautiful thing about REDCap is that you can click this blue line here. How do I format the equation? You click on it, you scroll down, and it shows you, all right, if you want to collect this, you use this rule. If you want to collect age, use this. If you want to find the difference of age, if you want to round it up, and just copy and paste. How much easier could it get? Okay. Other fields that REDCap allows for is multiple choice. And multiple choice comes with coding. So when you created your field label, say for example, this one is asking your language. When you've created your field label, you have to put your choices. And as I mentioned before, it allows for pre-coded data. So what this field label does is allow you to code the data with 1 comma. So you always use a comma when you're coding your data. Allows you to code that data. So when you download it, Haitian will be 2, Spanish will be 3, French will be 4, etc. And then you save it, and it will come up as nice radio buttons. You can also use our drop-down list, which is another version of multiple choice, but it displays differently. So you won't see everything on the screen. So you click multiple choice drop-down list, a single answer, and you put your options there, save it. And once the person completes it, they'll see whichever option they want, select it, and only that option will be displayed. You can use yes or no questions as well. If you're asking a question, are you being financially supported by your relative? Yes, no. It automatically comes up. Yes and no fields automatically comes up. You save it, you go forward, and then you can also, if you want a long response, here's a notes field. So if you want somebody to write something, describe how you're feeling, you select the field type, select notes, select save, and there's a big box that comes up. Interactively, if you want people to watch videos, say, watch this video and tell me what you think about it. REDCap allows you to upload your videos. It allows you to link your videos to other websites, and it can be embedded in the questionnaire, or it can open up in another link. So let's look at that one. We click on our pencil, which says edit. And then we select the field type, which is descriptive text. You want video, audio file, etc. You can select right from here, YouTube. You want a YouTube video. So I went to YouTube, I copied the link, I put it right here. If I wanted to upload a video, I would select upload document, click save, and there it is, my video on kidney disease. So the participants will be able to log on if they're doing the questionnaire as a survey, watch the video, and then answer the questions below. All right. Also, the last 2 sections that I really want to show you about is uploading results. If you want participants to upload any kind of results that they have or upload something that they did, they can do it as well. if they're doing it from their own computer. So you create the field type, you select file upload, which allows users to upload whatever they need to. Say, please upload your lab results, save. And once they click on the plus, they're able to upload their documents. As well as if you're doing, you can even just do a consent form on REDCap. So you can put your consent form on REDCap and ask persons to sign. So you select the field type, signature. So if you've read this consent form and you understood everything, please sign in the box below. Save. A box will come up where they're able to add their signature. You can't see it just yet, but that's there. So we just briefly went through the different field types. Do we have any questions? Very straightforward, right? Great. So what I really want to show you is the data validation. Because data collection and human data collection allows for errors, there are ways that we can prevent that. We can put in fields, we can put in rules to ensure that people collect data that is correct and within the normal range. So for example, let's go back to age. If you are, all right, let's use, all right, so let's use your gender, right? If you're collecting this and you want to ensure that nobody misses that question, you're able to say that this field is required. When I click yes, nobody can close the questionnaire without entering the information. A pop-up box would come up and say, hey, you haven't entered this as yet. Please put it in now before you can complete the questionnaire or submit the questionnaire, right? And then if you want to collect their date of birth, you can say, okay, nobody born after 2000 should complete this questionnaire. So you're able to put it in here and say, okay, this is how this is validated. All right, so that's how we can validate our data. There is also the data quality tool, which I would have mentioned before, that allows you to see the different missing values and just assess how clean your data is being collected. And then now for our third objective, I want to show you how to use the REDCap mobile version, because a lot of the times you cannot be carrying your laptop with you to collect your information. So REDCap has a version that allows you to take your tablet with you into the field to upload your questionnaire on that tablet and use it remotely without any internet connection. So let's say you've created your questionnaire. Now you go into REDCap mobile app. You click set up project, and then it gives you a QR code that you will scan. To do this, what you do is you get your tablet, whatever device you're using, your phone, you download the app on it, you create your own account, and this doesn't have to be anything with like REDCap associated. You just put a username and so forth, you log in, you create your account, and then you go and you scan the code, and the questionnaire will show up on your phone. So I have just done some screenshots of what that would look like in the mobile app. So this is the mobile app. So this is my phone that I would have taken screenshots on to show you. So after logging into the mobile app, I'm taken to the menu. After I've done the screenshot, I have my projects. I'll click the project that I'm using. I'll say I want to collect data. Once you've collected the data, it shows you the different parts of the questionnaire that you have. So these are different questionnaires that I would have created. I select which one I want to use, and then I select create new record. And this allows me to enter my data, to click complete when I'm done, to save and exit, and my data is available for me. Now, once I've done that, I always tell people, if you collect the data in the field, always upload it once you're in a Wi-Fi environment. And I've seen it several times where people come to me and say, oh, wow, Carrie-Ann, something happened to my laptop, something happened to my tablet, something happened to my phone, and all my data gone. I don't know where it is. I've been collecting data from long time and I never upload it, and now I don't know what to do. I'm sorry, but you've lost all your data. You need to upload it practice every time that you collect the data, upload it right away. So when you're ready to upload, you go back to the home page, you say send data to server, begin sending all of my data. So if it is that you're collecting data over over a few days, and say if I collected data on Monday, I would have uploaded it, and then I go into the field and collect data on Tuesday, you don't have to worry about re-uploading everything all over again. Just click send data to server every single time. You can never go wrong. It would ask you to access your GPS location. You can select yes, you can select no, but if you're managing a large project and you have data collectors everywhere, you can tell them to select yes, because then you're able to see where they're entering the data from, if that's relevant to you. And then once you select yes or no, it'll just tell you that the sync is complete. And when you log into RedCap the next time from your laptop, you will have seen all that data that you'd have just collected in the field. And just click return to project. And that is it. So just a last thing. When you're in the mobile version of the platform, you'll see 3 signs. You'll see unmodified, modified, and new. And this will tell you that, okay, unmodified, this means that this record has been collected on your tablet and you've already uploaded it to the server. So unmodified, that means this record is on the server and you haven't made any changes since you've last uploaded it. Mod, which is modified, means that this record was previously uploaded to the server. You went on your tablet, you made a change, you need to re-upload it again. That's what modified is telling you. So that change is not being reflected on the database on the server that you have. And new means that you've collected this data, it has not been uploaded, and you need to do it now. So whenever you log into your RedCap mobile device and you see modified or new, just know that you need to do a data dump, which is sending the data to the server. And we were supposed to finish at 10, and I condensed everything so that we could finish at 10. So if you, I'll take any questions if you have any at this time. Yes.
Good morning. Thank you for the presentation. That was a great crash course. My question is in relation to collecting when you do have records. So say, for example, I'm in the field and let's say I started collecting data and maybe I realize closer to the end that I did something wrong and is already as a record and I want to, I guess, edit that or even delete it and start again. Can I do that in the field?
So you realize that there's something wrong with your questionnaire?
No, just the data that I would have inputted that's now a record.
Yes, you can modify it. So you can go in, you can upload it to the server, upload it. If you're collecting on your tablet, you can upload it and you can log into RedCap. Once you have the user permissions, you can correct the information right then and there. So as I said, that RedCap has user permissions. So if it is that you're not allowed to modify any data, you won't be able to. But once you have like principal investigator control, you can change anything and just correct it.
Okay.
So it allows for that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Fantastic. Just wanting to find out if you have, say, multiple helpers to put your data in. How do you handle that if you only have one RedCap source? That's one of the questions. Maybe I'll let you answer that first.
Okay. RedCap allows you to add as many people as you want to a project. And once you have control of your project, if these people are not necessarily associated with your institution and they don't have an ID, you'd have to ask the RedCap administrator to create an account for them. Once that is done, you would go into your project. Say, for example, if this is my project, the registry, no. If this was my project and I needed to add people, I would go to user rights. It's being shown. I would look for their name. It should come up in the platform, I would select their name and I can add them to my project. So I want to create this person and put them as a PI. It will add them for you. And you can add as many people as you want. Once each person has their account, you can create a token. So remember when I showed you that thing where you can scan a barcode? Each person can log in from their end, scan a code, and have their own login on a RedCap mobile device to collect data. So they each have their own tablets and they're collecting their own data, and you on the back end can see what each person is doing. So Susie didn't log on today. She didn't collect any data, but she told me she was in the field and she collected 5 people. And I would have collected 1 to 4 records on my tablet. That's what it would show. Radina's tablet would show that she also has 1 to 4 records. However, when I upload it on the server, my records will be 1 to 4. But if Radina uploads after me, her records will show 4 to 8. So you also need to create your own identifier as well. So you would create, if you have record ID, you would create record number or some other variable to say, okay, this is record 100 and Radina uses 200. So you'd know that, okay, these are separate. And you can also ask the data collector to put their initials when they collect the data. So it's a data collector initials, and you can see who collected what if you don't know the data and you're looking at it on the big screen. Yes, they create that, and then you can create your own record ID, your own unique identifier as well. Okay. If there are no other questions, I will hand over to Radina. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Carrie Ann, for that very practical and informative presentation. I saw some of the residents definitely engaging. For those that are at that level of their research, they understand the importance of REDCap. Something that I just wanted to add in for persons who may be using different clinics for their research. As she said, REDCap does add that initial record ID, but if you have different clinics, sometimes it's important to just use maybe the clinic initials as that second number so that you know. So if you may be stratifying and you need to have 70 from Elizabeth Estates or 60 from the family medicine clinic, that you just identify that so that you know when you've reached your quota for that particular clinic. That also helps in the process as well too. So thank you very much for attending. Please give Carrie another round of applause. Today, we know that the workshop highlighted some very key themes for us, for those at the residency level, for those that are just doing research as physicians. It just helped us to look at the importance of research integrity through proper ethical approval, and of course, the value of mastering tools like REDCap, which help to strengthen the quality, organization, and impact of our studies. So as we continue with this year's UWI's Research Days under the theme Making the Bahamas Healthy Again, building on a foundation, a research foundation, I encourage everyone to keep the conversations going, connect with one another, share your ideas, and collaborate beyond this room. The reminder that Nestle is in the library and available for engagement. I'd now like to ask Dr. Saunders to come to the front for a presentation.
Good morning. So I'm sure that everybody was enriched by this research workshop. I myself learned a lot, and I'm sure we're going to use what we've learned to move forward with continuing research in the Bahamas at our institution and in our nation worldwide. So on behalf of the University of the West Indies School of Clinical Medicine and Research, my job is to say a special thank you to our presenters. So Professor Knight Madden is on her way back. It was amazing to see her. She was actually my professor at UWI, and I actually followed under her in pulmonology clinic many years ago. And so it was a pleasure to see her back here in the Bahamas. I trained with her in Jamaica a few years, but I have a special gift for Mrs. Blake, our statistician. It was very interesting. Red cap, I know nothing about, so this is all new for me. And yes, it was new information, but it looks exciting, and I'm looking forward to use it to move forward with research. But we have a small token to give you for spending your time with us just to explain, and I'm sure that you'll be our key point person to help us with Red Cap. So on behalf of the University of the West Indies School of Clinical Medicine Research and our research team, I want to say thank you. It's a special gift for you.
So much. Yes. All right, so Professor Nightman, I guess she's not here, but when she comes, we also have a special gift and great knowledge, great people in the room. And so hopefully we continue over the evening and into tomorrow with our research presentation. So thank you.
So just some final housekeeping. Our next session is going to begin at 1 p.m. and that will be virtual. So please sign into Sunshine Learner so that you're able to get the Zoom link and everyone to be on board for signing in. Once again, the enrollment key for feedback is the word research, all small letters. Thank you so much for attending this first session. Remember that Nestle is outside, and we thank you so much for coming this morning.